In the pulsing heart of downtown Los Angeles, where the skyline glints with ambition and the streets hum with the restless energy of commerce, a high-end bank rises like a cathedral of wealth. Its facade of sleek glass and steel reflects the morning sun, a monument to success in a city that worships it. Inside, the lobby gleams with opulence. Polished marble floors stretch endlessly, catching the light from towering windows that frame the urban sprawl beyond. Abstract sculptures loom in corners, their sharp angles a silent boast of modernity, while plush leather chairs cradle a clientele draped in tailored suits and designer handbags. The air carries the faint scent of espresso from a discreet cafe nook and the muted clatter of keyboards as tellers in crisp uniforms process transactions with mechanical precision. A soft chime rings out intermittently, signaling completed services, a sound that once filled James Menas with pride when he envisioned this place, a testament to his triumph over a world that tried to keep him small. Today, though, James isn't here as the CEO and founder, the black man who turned a dream into an empire against all odds. He's here as a shadow, a test, a quiet observer cloaked in anonymity to see if the institution he built still honors the values he fought for. Dressed in a light blue shirt pressed to perfection, khaki pants that hang with understated ease, and clean white sneakers, he sheds the trappings of power. No Rolex, no Italian loafers, no silk tie to announce his rank. He's just another customer, here to withdraw $25,000 from his personal account, a routine request that should glide through the system he designed. But beneath his calm exterior, a question gnaws. Will this place, his creation, treat him as it should, or will it mirror the society that's judged him since birth? The glass doors part with a whisper, admitting a rush of cool air laced with the city's pulse-distant sirens, the rumble of traffic, the chatter of pedestrians chasing their own hustles. James steps inside, his sneakers silent against the marble, his eyes scanning the scene with the sharpness of a man who's learned to read rooms before they read him. The lobby buzzes with controlled chaos. A young woman in a Chanel coat taps her heel impatiently by the ATM. A gray-haired man in a pinstripe suit murmurs into his phone. A trio of tellers exchange clipped pleasantries as they shuffle paperwork. Behind the counters, staff move like cogs in a well-oiled machine, their navy blazers emblazoned with the bank's discreet logo, a stylized M that James chose himself, a nod to his name and the mother who taught him resilience. He pauses near a towering fern, its leaves brushing the edge of a polished brass railing, and lets his gaze drift. To his left, a middle-aged white man in a dark gray blazer leans against the counter, his posture relaxed, almost entitled. The teller, a brunette with a practiced smile, chats with him lightly, her fingers dancing over the keyboard before sliding stacks of crisp bills across the desk. James catches a glimpse of the receipt as the man folds it into his wallet. $30,000. Withdrawn, no questions, no delay. The client offers a casual, "Thanks, sweetheart," adjusts his jacket, and strides toward the exit, his steps buoyant, his privilege an invisible armor that deflects scrutiny. James watches him go, a familiar ache tightening his chest, an ache he's carried since he was a boy in South LA, watching white kids breeze through doors he had to pry open. He remembers the first time he felt it, 10 years old, trailing his mother through a grocery store, her calloused hands counting change for bread, while a white woman ahead paid with a credit card and a smile, no one questioning her worth. He remembers high school, when teachers praised his white classmates for answers he'd given first, their surprise at his intellect a backhanded insult. He remembers the bank loans he sought in his 20s, the polite rejections. Too risky, they'd said, eyes lingering on his skin, not his spreadsheets. Each memory is a brick in the wall he's spent his life tearing down, and this bank was supposed to be the wrecking ball, a place where merit ruled, not race. Today, he'll see if that holds. With a slow breath, he joins the line, his posture relaxed, but his mind a storm of anticipation. The queue moves briskly 5 minutes, then 3, and soon he's at the counter, facing a blonde teller in a navy blazer, her name tag reading Leona. The warmth she showed the white client vanishes like smoke. Her eyes meet his, cold and appraising, a flicker of disdain curling her lips before she smooths it into a thin, perfunctory smile. She slides a clipboard across the counter, her fingers hovering as if reluctant to bridge the gap between them. "Fill this out," she says, her voice sharp and clipped, an edge of impatience that feels like a personal rebuke. James studies her, the tight set of her jaw, the way her gaze skims over him without settling, the subtle tilt of her head that screams judgment. It's a look he knows too well, one he's seen in landlords who raised rent when he showed up, in cops who demanded ID for no reason, in executives who questioned his right to lead. He takes the form, its familiar lines a quiet irony he wrote these procedures, sat in late-night meetings to perfect them, ensuring fairness in every clause. Pen in hand, he fills it out with precision, name, account number, $25,000, all in the neat script his mother drilled into him. "Make him respect you, even on paper," she'd said. He slides it back with his ID, a small plastic card that holds his identity, his legitimacy, his life's work. Leona snatches the form, her eyes darting to the amount, but she doesn't touch the ID. Instead, she shoves the paper back with a force that makes it skid. "We can't process this transaction," she declares, her tone final, arms crossing like a barricade. James frowns, his fingers brushing the rejected form. "Excuse me, Leona," he says, nodding toward the exit. "Large withdrawals don't seem to be a problem here. You didn't hesitate when that guy took out $30,000. What's different now?" Her lips thin into a hard line, her eyes narrowing as if his question is an insult to her authority. "It's different," she snaps, offering no explanation, as if the disparity is too obvious to justify or too damning to voice. James leans forward slightly, his voice steady but edged with a quiet challenge. "How so?" For a moment, she falters, her gaze flicking away not from shame, but annoyance before landing on a glass-walled office at the back. There, John Williams, the manager, stands with arms crossed, his tailored suit crisp, his pale eyes watching with a detached, almost clinical interest. James follows her look, meeting John's stare a cold, calculating assessment that feels like a verdict already passed. John gives a faint nod, a silent signal that emboldens Leona. She turns back, her tone now icy and dismissive. "I've already told you," she says, tapping the form with a manicured nail. "We can't process this." James takes a slow, deliberate breath, clinging to the composure he's honed over decades of navigating this minefield. He's faced this script too often, store clerks trailing him, security guards eyeing him, strangers clutching purses when he passes. It's the tax of existing as a black man in a world that assumes guilt before innocence, and he's paid it in sweat, in silence, in the quiet dignity his mother taught him to wield. "And I'd like to know why," he says, his voice calm but insistent, a thread of steel beneath it. Leona doesn't answer immediately. Her fingers drum on the counter, a restless tick, before she sighs and tilts her head with a saccharine smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "It's just unusual," she says, her tone a mockery of reason. "A withdrawal this large can seem suspicious. The word suspicious lands like a fist, heavy with the stereotypes he's spent his life outrunning thief, con, danger all pinned to him without evidence, without cause, just because of the skin he wears. He lets it hang there, feeling it burrow into his chest, a wound reopened with every encounter like this. But it didn't seem suspicious when he did it," James counters, nodding toward the door, his voice low but pointed. "A white guy walks out with more, and you're all smiles. I ask for less, and I'm a threat. So, Leona, what's different about me?" Her eyes flicker with uncertainty, but she brushes it off with a shake of her head. "Sir, I don't make the rules," she retorts, as if that absolves her of the choice to enforce them unevenly. James lets out a short, bitter laugh, the sound cutting through the lobby's hum. "You don't make the rules, but you sure know how to bend them when it's me standing here." Her lips tighten, and she snaps, "I'm calling my manager," before spinning on her heel and marching toward the office, her blazer swishing with righteous indignation. James remains at the counter, his fingers tapping a slow rhythm on the cool surface, mirroring the steady thump of his heart beneath a rising tide of anger. The bank's atmosphere shifts, a subtle tension ripples through the air, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Other tellers glance his way, their eyes darting quickly before retreating behind their screens. Clients shift uncomfortably, a woman adjusts her scarf, a man pretends to check his watch, sensing the discord, but choosing silence over solidarity. Nearby, an older white woman in her 60s, her name tag reading Clara Smith, watches him with a mix of curiosity and unease. Her hands clutch her purse, her lips twitching as if she might speak, but she settles for a timid smile when James doesn't return. He knows this dance. The bystanders who see the wrongness feel a pang of guilt, but let it pass. Their inaction, a quiet endorsement of the status quo. He's seen it in neighbors who watched him get frisked as a teen, in colleagues who nodded at his pitches but backed white peers, in every space where his presence was tolerated but never embraced. Across the lobby, a young black woman in a teller's uniform. Her name tag reads, Maya pauses mid-transaction, her eyes lingering on James with a flicker of recognition, perhaps empathy. She's new, he recalls, hired last month after he pushed for more diversity in staffing. Her lips part as if to intervene, but an older teller beside her, a stern-faced white woman, mutters something sharp, and Maya drops her gaze, returning to her work. James notes it, a pang of disappointment mingling with his resolve. Even here, in his bank, the pressure to conform silences those who might understand. The office door swings open and John Williams emerges, his polished shoes clicking with authority against the marble. His face is a mask of control, smooth, unreadable. The perfect corporate facade, his gray suit tailored to perfection. His tie a muted red that screams understated power. Leona trails behind, her smugness bolstered by his presence, her arms crossed like a shield. John steps to the counter, adjusts his blazer with a practiced flick, and fixes James with a smile that's all teeth and no warmth. "Good morning, sir," he says, his voice smooth as silk but hollow, the tone of someone used to pacifying troublemakers. "I understand you're requesting a sizable withdrawal today." James meets his gaze, unflinching, his voice steady. "That's right." John's smile tightens, a faint edge creeping in. "Unfortunately, we have strict security protocols for transactions of this scale." James tilts his head, repeating slowly, "Security protocols." John nods, as if explaining to a slow child. "To protect our clients and staff, we have to be vigilant with large withdrawals." James crosses his arms, his voice probing. "And what does that mean for me, exactly?" John's tone dips into condescension, his smirk barely concealed. "It means we need to verify additional information before we can proceed." James's frustration simmers, though he keeps his face composed. "You mean my information? Because you didn't verify a damn thing when that other guy walked out with $30,000. John's smile holds, but his jaw betrays a twitch he's not used to being called out. "I can't discuss other clients' transactions," he says, his voice hardening. "But in your case, I need to confirm the source of the funds and the exact amount of your last deposit." James's patience frays, his voice rising just enough to carry across the lobby. "My account's right there in your system, everything you need. Why don't you check it?" John's expression turns steely, his authority challenged. "I need your cooperation, Mr. Manus." The name feels like a jab, a reminder that even knowing who he is doesn't shift their lens. James laughs, a sharp, incredulous sound that echoes off the marble. "Cooperation? I've given you my ID, my form, everything, and you're still digging for excuses to say no. This isn't protocol, it's prejudice, and we both know it." The word cuts through the air, sharp and undeniable. John's eyes flash briefly, Leona stiffens, and a hush falls over the lobby. Clients pause mid-conversation, tellers freeze mid-task. Maya's head snaps up before dropping again under her colleague's glare. For a moment, John's mask slips, his lips twitching as if to retort, but he opts for control, signaling with a sharp gesture toward the back. Mark Evans, the security guard, a hulking white man in his 30s, straightens from his post near the entrance, his navy uniform crisp, his badge glinting under the lights. His gaze shifts from John to James, and he strides forward with a purpose that's all too familiar, his heavy boots thudding against the floor like a war drum. James stands his ground, his heart pounding as Mark's shadow looms closer. Mark's presence is a wall, tall, broad, exuding the kind of authority that's wielded too often against men who look like James. His face is neutral, but his posture screams readiness, as if he's been waiting for this moment, trained to see black skin as a signal to act. John barely glances at him. The command is unspoken but clear. He locks eyes with James, expecting compliance. The same old story. Black man, presumed guilty, no questions asked. "I'll ask again," John says, his politeness a thin veil over his intent to eject him. "Can you confirm the source of these funds?" James's jaw tightens, his voice low and deliberate. "My salary, like every deposit I've made since I opened this place." John glances at Leona, who stands rigid, her silence a tacit endorsement. "And the exact amount of your last deposit?" he presses, as if James is a stranger off the street, not the man who signs their checks. James stares him down, the weight of every averted gaze in the room pressing in clients feigning ignorance, tellers avoiding eye contact. Clara clutching her purse like it's a lifeline, Maya stealing a glance before looking away. "My account's there for you to see," he says, his calm fraying at the edges. "Why don't you look?" John's smirk returns, faint but cutting. "That's not how we do things here," he replies, a low chuckle underscoring his dismissal. James steps closer, his voice steady but laced with steel. "Interesting. I've been a client here for years. Hell, I built this bank from the ground up, poured my life into it, and I've never faced this. Never been made to feel like an outsider in my own damn house. So tell me, John, what is it about me that sets you off? My shirt? My shoes? Or is it just that I'm black?" The question hangs, a guillotine blade over the room. Leona shifts, her confidence cracking. John's smile twists into something uglier, a quiet relish in his power. His eyes sweep over James, a silent verdict louder than words. Mark closes in, his shadow swallowing the light. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave now," he says, his tone clipped, treating James like a trespasser in the empire he forged. James meets his gaze, searching for doubt, but finds only blind obedience, another cog in a machine built to exclude. He thinks of his mother, working double shifts to keep him fed, telling him, "They'll try to push you out, baby. Don't let them." He hasn't, not then, not now. Taking a deep breath, James pulls out his phone, unlocks it, and starts recording. "You're refusing to process my withdrawal," he states, voice clear and unwavering, despite me providing all my documents and account details. A white client just withdrew more without a whisper of doubt. Leona flinches, John's face hardens, and Mark's stance stiffens. "I'll ask again," Mark says, less certain now. "Please leave." James's grip tightens on the phone, and before he can respond, Mark grabs his arm firm, unyielding, yanking him back. James stumbles, his shoulder slamming into Mark's frame as the guard spins him toward the door and shoves him hard. A gasp ripples through the room. A woman's voice murmurs, "What's happening?" But no one steps in. Mark pushes again, harder, and James's body crashes into the glass door, the jolt searing up his spine. He steadies himself, refusing to falter, as the door swings open and he's thrust outside, the morning air a cold slap against his skin. Mark stands at the entrance, arms crossed, his indifference a fortress. Then, the final indignity, James's ID is tossed to the ground, landing with a hollow thud, a discarded symbol of his identity, his legitimacy, his life's work. Rage ignites in his chest, a wildfire threatening to consume him. This isn't just about money, it's about erasure, a reminder that no title, no fortune, no legacy can scrub the target from his back. He remembers his first job, 16, bagging groceries while white coworkers got cashier shifts. His first apartment, the landlord's surprise when he showed up. "Oh, I didn't expect." The boardroom battles where his voice was drowned out until a white VP echoed it. This bank was his defiance, his proof, and now it's a mirror of the world he fought to escape. Before he can bend to retrieve it, a second guard approaches David Jones, a black man in his 30s, his eyes shadowed with a fatigue that's more than physical. David crouches, picks up the ID with care, wipes it gently against his sleeve, and hands it back to James. "Always the same damn story here," he mutters, low and bitter, a shared truth in his voice. James takes it, their fingers brushing a fleeting solidarity in a sea of rejection. David sighs, shaking his head. "Don't matter what you've got, degrees, cash, a corner office. Do it all right, and they still see us as the help, the threat, the quota. We're props to them, here to make them feel good about diversity, without changing a damn thing." He glances at Mark, his expression a mix of weariness and disgust. "Ain't new, man. Never will be." James holds his gaze, his pulse hammering, the sting of humiliation pulsing through him. He thinks of David's words, of the countless others like them trapped in roles that limit, not lift, their worth measured by how well they fit the narrative others write. He pulls out his phone again, this time to call. It rings twice before a voice answers. "I need you at the branch now," James says, his tone taut with barely contained fury. "Downtown office, 15 minutes. A pause, then a sigh. "I'll be there." He hangs up, clutching his ID like it's a lifeline, the anger a live wire under his skin. His eyes shift to David, who lingers nearby, hands on hips, watching the doors where Mark stands like a sentinel. David lets out a dry laugh. This is going to be a hell of a show. The wait drags, each minute a battle to keep his composure as he paces outside, watching through the glass, John and Leona conferring in hushed tones, Mark vigilant, Clara slipping away to dodge the fallout, Maya stealing glances before bowing to the older teller's glare. James replays every slight, every microaggression that led here. He thinks of his first loan rejection. Too risky, they'd said, eyes on his skin, not his plan. He thinks of the board meetings where his ideas were parroted by white colleagues and praised as theirs. He thinks of every time he's had to smile through the bile to prove he's not the stereotype they've already cast him as. This bank was his defiance, his proof, and now it's a battlefield. Finally, a sleek black car pulls up, its engine purring softly. Richard Carter, a white man in his 50s with gray hair and a pristine suit, steps out, his presence a quiet thunderclap. He's the kind of man who commands without asking, his authority earned, not assumed. A senior VP, James, hired for his integrity, not his pedigree. Spotting James, his face tightens recognition, then resolve. Mark shifts uneasily as Richard approaches, but Richard strides past, entering the bank like a storm breaking. The air shifts as Richard crosses the threshold, James and David trailing behind. John spots him, his face flickering with confusion before settling into a strained smile. "Mr. Manas," he greets, voice tight. "We weren't expecting you." Richard cuts him off, his tone cold as steel. "What I don't get is why the director of my own damn branch was thrown out like a thug." Silence slams down, thick and suffocating. John pales, Mark freezes, and the staff halts, papers rustling to a stop. "I was following protocol," John stammers, his polish cracking. "I've handled it," Richard snaps, his glare a blade. "You refused his transaction, why?" John fumbles. "Security protocol?" Richard echoes, incredulous. "Is that your excuse for racial profiling?" Leona gapes, mute. Richard turns to John, his voice slow and lethal. "Did you even check his account before deciding he didn't belong?" John flounders, his facade crumbling. "Sir, yes or no?" Richard demands. John's hesitation is his undoing. "You're fired," Richard says, voice a guillotine's drop, effective immediately. "And if this happens to anyone else under my watch, it's not just your job, you'll face court." John's face flushes, his power stripped raw. "This is outrageous," he starts, but James cuts in, voice steady with fury. "You treated me like a criminal, tossed my ID like trash, ignored your own system, all because you saw black and thought trouble." Richard nods, regret shadowing his eyes. He's seen James fight this fight before, knows the toll it takes. He turns to David. "You," he says. David straightens, startled. "You're promoted, starting now. You deserve better than this." David blinks, stunned. To James, Richard asks, "Want this place gutted and rebuilt?" James nods, firm. "Done," Richard says, addressing the staff. "Mandatory training on bias for everyone involved, 2 weeks, no exceptions." His gaze lingers on Mark, a silent reprimand. James steps to the counter, processes his withdrawal, no resistance now, and slides a stack to David. "Take the day," he says. David accepts, hesitant but grateful. To John, James delivers a parting shot. "You should have checked my ID." He walks out, head high, leaving a reckoning in his wake, a promise that this bank, his bank, will finally reflect the man who built it.